Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about something that's not on the professional side of things. It's definitely more on the high school track and field side of things. But I think it's a super important conversation we need to be having because I don't know how long we have until what's happening on the high school side of track and field starts to affect what's happening on the professional side of track and field. Because today I want to talk about, is track and field in trouble? Are we in trouble? Because now hear me out, okay? Because to anyone who follows professional track and field and primarily follows professional track and field or even the big collegiate or high school meets, you might think I'm crazy. You actually probably think I'm crazy to say track and field might be in trouble because we're seeing the fastest times ever run. Obviously, there's an argument to be made that a lot of that's because of new technology, shoe innovations, and things like that. But regardless, we're seeing the fastest times in history being run. And we're seeing young people, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, run faster, jump higher, jump farther than they ever have before. However, that superstar factor, those amazing times, super performances, and age group world records, those aren't the whole story when it comes to youth in track and field. And that's something that I think is important to address because I'm someone who sees it a lot firsthand, and it does worry me for the future of our sport. Because the truth is, track and field, while it's a growing sport, in high school is sort of becoming less of a phenomenon. And now, this can also depend on where you live. So I will just put it out there. I live in a small town surrounded by small towns in the middle of nowhere. So this can vary, but I've seen this in a lot of different places. Track and field isn't as big as it used to be or as it was even just a couple of years ago, mainly pre-COVID. Just the numbers aren't as big. There's more competition with sports like lacrosse, softball, baseball, and things of that nature. And there's also much higher emphasis recently on single sport specialization. And that's one of those things that I just feel that it has contributed to how fast we have seen young athletes run in track and field, but it also contributes to less athletes doing track and field in some scenarios. So single sport specialization is when at a pretty young age, an athlete decides, I'm just going to do this sport. Because it's common for young athletes and high school athletes to have a primary sport, something they really want to focus on. Maybe they want to do it in college or even further on. But what we're seeing increasingly now is because things have gotten so competitive, it creates an atmosphere where in order to succeed, athletes feel like they need to only play one sport. They need to just do one thing. And this is something that's also hurt my teams a lot because I go to a small school, but it happens everywhere, especially at big schools where you need to compete and audition or try out to even make a team. It can really be a big factor. So a lot of the athletes that we used to see that would play football or basketball or soccer, through high school and then get recruited as these amazing track and field prospects and run amazing times in college, that's something that's not happening as much now because they want to focus and they want to just do basketball or just do wrestling or just do soccer or just do whatever sport it may be. And sometimes that is track. And that's kind of when you see those age group phenoms who, might succeed at a higher level in the senior divisions or they might not. But either way, you see those age group phenoms because a lot of them have specialized. And once again, this isn't the case for everybody, but it's the case in a lot of situations. And the other factor to consider is just the amount of middle and high schoolers who are involved in sports has been on a decrease. And I don't know about this nationwide, but I know at least in my local area and where I live, it has been on the decline for several years now, especially since COVID. And obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into this. You can see, kids are always on their phones and things like that. And that can definitely be a factor, but there's other things to consider as well, such as college is getting a lot more expensive and a lot more inaccessible, and people feel like they need to devote all of their time and energy to schoolwork in order to succeed, in order to be able to take that next step academically versus athletically. So there's lots of different factors that can influence this, but it has been on a general downward turn. And it's really hard to discover the next big talent when the next big talent might not even be getting into that sport or sports at all. And also, it's interesting because this is happening at the same time that we see so many age group world records and so many fast times and what you might call trackflation, like that's what the common term for it. And this can also be harmful in some cases to all levels of the sport, especially at like a high school and middle school level, because there's this sentiment of I'm so far behind and I can just never catch up. And I understand this, and I've heard so many of my teammates have this sentiment, and so many people I run with have this sentiment. Even people that are very successful on a high school level or successful, in that kind of atmosphere have this mentality of I'm just so far behind and I'm never going to be able to catch up. I'm never going to be able to achieve my goals in this sport, or I'm never going to be able to run in college, or this, that, and the other thing. And that's something that can really demotivate young athletes, and it can harm their growth and their development, especially mentally, when they're trying to take that next step athletically. And that's something that with trackflation, you see a lot more of the time. Also, does social media help with everyone calling each other roles? Probably not. But that there's just so many factors to consider. And the world as a whole and the teenage experience and the middle school experience is just changing so much. And it gives me pause and gives me concern for the future of our sport because, at least in my experience, these things can really have a negative impact on getting new athletes interested in track and field, which is the way that you discover new talent and that you have all of this success as a sport and that you grow the sport, which I know every track and field fan's number one goal is we want to grow the sport. So yeah, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think about this very complex issue. Let me know if there's other factors I haven't considered that you think affects this. And I would just love to have a discussion about this with you guys because I think it's something that's really important to consider as we move forward, move into the future of this sport. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!